Vitality on the blue side, Fnatic on the red, and Vedius, I know that you think draft is vital for both these teams.
Yeah, so we heard the analyst that's talking a little bit about ways in which Vitality can come out ahead against Fnatic. One of the big things for me is engage on the side of Vitality. When we saw them draft kind of this awkward composition where they had no solid way of starting fights last week, often you'd see Jiizuke flashing in on Galio, trying to get multi-man taunts off, being out of position and setting his team up for an engage that they couldn't really follow up on. You converse that to the day after, and you have Cabochard on a Kled, you have Jactroll on a Rakan, and when they just have engage, this team is actually really good at team fighting. And I think that as long as they can maintain strong laners in the early game, and they have engage tools that they can use to find fights in the mid game, I think they actually stand a solid chance against Fnatic, and that's why I believe the draft is so important.
Have to look for these engage tools. Do have to bring everyone's attention to the fact it is still Kikis playing for Vitality. Gilius has not rejoined the starting lineup. He's still part of the squad, still part of the team, still working with them at home. Today we'll be watching from the sidelines, and with the Orianna, Attila, Aatrox bans, Kindred, Swain, and Pyke bans, it's going to be a Trundle first pick.
Now, this was something that they drafted into the Nocturne last week. One of the big reasons that Trundle is considered a counter to Nocturne is because of how well he can trade with him early on, especially in the enemy jungle. So I imagine the Kik is looking to maintain his style of looking to constantly counter jungle and kind of force Fnatic onto this Nocturne pick.
I personally just wouldn't risk it. I don't think that you want to give Nocturne over to Broxah. Even if you do have that counter pick in mind, I'm just not convinced that Nocturne, the style of champion, one of the reasons why he's so strong and why you see him banned out pretty much all the time is because of his ability to, it's not really the 1v1 jungle matchup, it's the fact that he ults all the lanes and the kind of like pressure that he has over there. Stuff that Trundle, I mean, we'll see. We'll see, of course, in game whether they do have that specific, you know, stylistically Kikis invading, like you said a lot in my word, but I just would not give Broxah this number.
I agree with you. I think that the matchup can be quite volatile, and it very much depends on how well you can utilize pressure in the early game in order to shut the Nocturne down. But interestingly, Fnatic also grabbing themselves the Galio to deny that away from Jiizuke. He is an individual that hasn't had the greatest performance so far this split, and it felt like that it was something he had a pretty solid couple of games on last week. So by denying that, not only will it give Caps nice follow-up on the Nocturne engage, which is always a great thing to have, but it also denies it away from Jiizuke.
Does allow Vitality to get themselves a pretty strong bottom lane, though. Xayah, Rakan, always very powerful, and we're starting to see Attila and Jactroll move towards these more conventional bottom lanes rather than the mage plus roaming support we've seen them on before.
I think that Jactroll on the likes of Rakan is actually really, that would be an interesting blind pick. I don't think they're going to go for the gameplay. I think that it suits his style of champion really well. You know, things like the Pyke he's done really well on it too, and he does like to roam quite a lot. I actually kind of view Jactroll as like a Hylissang light as far as his play style goes. I think that absolutely he can be a playmaker, and Rakan's a very solid choice to do that one.
Yeah, but you're also giving a roaming playmaking champion to Fnatic as well. And you look at their front line and their engage, oof. It is pretty oof. You know, Alistar is going to be pretty beefy. The Nocturne could also engage as well because he has a Galio behind him. Often, one of my big struggles with Nocturne is you often build pretty squishy right now, and you can't be an engage tool because when you go in, you insta-die. But when you have the damage reduction from a Galio ulti and the amount of utility he provides in the Shroud of Darkness too, it's a fantastic combo.
Right, that's one of those things whenever I'm educating my viewers on how to play Nocturne. Your ultimate is a great engage tool. You literally press it and you engage. But don't use it to engage because you will explode. You want a secondary engage on Nocturne or find more like those, you know, just like catch someone on a sideway or something like that. I do want to just quickly go back to the Galio pick though, because this is the second time the Caps has picked Galio. The first time, it wasn't great. I wasn't 100% convinced by it, and more specifically, Caps does not really play this style of champions. The only other kind of like team-orientated mid laner that he's played would be the Orianna very recently. But outside of that, he's mostly just been playing these carries, so it is a bit of a stylistic swap from Caps here, going to that Galio.
And the last time they played it, they lost to Splice. I think Caps ended 1-5-3 in that game, so it didn't have the best of performances. It was a Zoe that was picked into it by Nisqy, and Zoe is still on the cards. Jiizuke was one of the key players to bring out Zoe in Spring Split, so would not be at all surprised if Team Vitality want to go towards that.
So looking at what Fnatic need right now, they've got Engage, They do have some damage with the Nocturne, but they want a little bit more. Throwing in a Vladimir really adds to the teamfight prowess that this draft seems to be developing into for Fnatic. And Vitality, they have a pretty solid teamfight of their own. And while they do have engage with the Rakan, I imagine they want a little bit more follow-up. And given that they need a mid laner and a top laner, I'd quite like to see a tank coming out from Cabo. Something like an Ornn, I think, could be very valuable for the squad, but also kind of an iconic pick right now for Jiizuke, something that he had a lot of success with last split.
Remember when he played up against Fnatic on the Ryze?
Very true.
I remember. Into sOAZ, into Caps, got the 2v1 outplay. It was Vlad and Azir, I believe, that he killed in that bottom lane. Gonna have the Ryze for himself once again. Now we're looking up towards the top lane for Cabochard, and Gragas is a key pick.
I wonder whether sOAZ will pick the Poppy in this situation then. I think Poppy into Gragas is one of the better picks that you can go for. They would be lacking a little bit of sustained damage in that situation. This could actually be that... who's that? Their top laner
Vladimir
is
top.
Vlad, actually.
No, Galio bot, Vlad top,
Azir mid.
Azir mid.
We've got until 20
then.
seconds.
Yeah,
so
20 seconds.
Let's take 30 seconds to talk about Team Vitality's competition here, guys. Let's pretend that we don't know what's going on.
I'm pretty confident that Jiizuke is not playing. There we go.
Yeah. I know you just said talk about Team Vitality.
Talk about what you want to talk about, FoxDrop.
I wouldn't be too surprised.
You live your best life, Queen.
Thank you. Yes, I wouldn't be too surprised if that's actually Azir bot. Because when we have these kind of roaming supports coming out of Hylissang, often you pick the wave clear, hence the Victor ban. And also the Ryze has been played as well.
It's not Azir bot.
It's not Azir bot.
Unless Caps goes bot lane.
Unless Caps goes bot lane. But, you know, either way, it does completely moot my point about Caps' Galio, at least. So,
That's very true.
There's that.
They're just like, you know what, Caps, you can't play Galio. Get off it. We'll give it to Bwipo instead.
You know what it does do, though? If Hylissang's going to roam all the time, Bwipo now has a perfect tool to join any fight that goes on, because he's got the hero's entrance. He can always join the fight. Makes it really easy for him.
So I don't think they're going to roam.
Okay.
I think they've drafted a bit of a kill lane down bot.
Ooh.
Galio Alistar has so much crowd control between it, and actually has a surprising amount of damage that you have kill pressure onto someone as squishy as a Rakan. So I feel like that while Hylissang typically does roam a lot, it's something that he often does, when Fnatic draft more of a wave clear kind of defensive bot, which you can consider Galio to fall under, that's fair. That's when you see Hylissang roam a lot more. But with this 2v2, I see a lot of kill pressure. I see the ability to get those 2v2 kills, and I just feel like Fnatic will look to play a little bit more around bot lane this game.
Especially if Bwipo on Galio decides to go electrocute, which I'm going to look into my crystal ball and say that he will do that. But that's
a bold prediction from
Woo!
Josh.
Electrocute, baby!
Bold
Yes.
prediction. Going to be electrocute for the Galio, and we're going to jump onto the Summoner's Rift. Team Vitality still playing for their playoff spot. Fnatic trying to show that they deserve to be the top dog in Europe. We've seen Misfits fall already. Will this be the second giant to go down today?
So, we've talked a lot about Fnatic. They've got an interesting composition. We can talk a little bit more about matchups later, but I want to talk more about this Vitality comp.
Okay.
Because what I thought was super important was, number one, that they had engage, and then number two, they had strong laners to play around to allow Kikis to invade and counter jungle and do something that he's very comfortable on. So far, they've got a winning lane bot. Jiizuke Ryze into Azir. We saw it last game. In the early game, you kind of have pressure because you wave clear much faster once you get around the level 3 mark. And top lane, I would argue that in the early game, you actually have more wave clear than the Vladimir does. So you kind of have 3 pushing waves very early on. And I'd like to see Kikis utilize this. I want him to see and use some of the early pressure that he does have across the board to invade onto Broxah and see if he can kind of put this Nocturne behind like he did against Rocket.
And I think that Broxah actually is rather vulnerable in that situation, like you mentioned, just with the lane matchups. We can look at the keystones as well, with the Vladimir going for Predator. That's not a keystone you pick for any lane strength. It's more as the game goes on, joining fights and even going for some cheeky roams if you fancy as well, but it won't help him into that Gragas. And like you said, the Gragas can push in, so he will have a pushing lane in that top side. You discussed the mid lane as well. Essentially, Kikis will have freedom to go for Broxah in this game if he finds the correct windows to do so. And it's going to be one of those situations where this was the pick they gave up, was the Nocturne. Let's see if it plays out for Vitality.
This mid lane matchup, it's so nostalgic for me as well, because it was Jiizuke on the Ryze when he really stamped his authority on the EU LCS, beating caps on the Azir. Kikis will get himself a Scuttle Crab, forces Broxah away.
And look at the pressure they've generated bot. Range versus melee, you're always going to have greater wave clear, greater push. Rakan is going to move up with Kikis, and the counter jungling begins. Be a little more specific as to why the Nocturne struggles in this matchup against the Trundle. Nocturne can get pretty low in the jungle. He also burns a lot of mana. Converse that to Trundle, has a lot of sustain and damage.
A lot of damage onto Hylissang here. He's going to have to flash across the wall. The Ignite was used. But already, Vitality coming out on top in the early game.
And just to go off the point you were making about how Nocturne can struggle, yes, he does use a lot of mana as well. But Nocturne is one of these champions who, in the 1v1, is either the best or the worst. He's kind of like
100%, yeah.
Because if you tag someone with your Q, for example, that gives you a huge AD steroid. If you can block an ability with your W, not only do you block it, but you get attack speed as well. You've got to get your fear off. Like, it's not that simple for Nocturne to run at someone and destroy them, but he has the tools to do so. Whereas with Trundle, it's very much a, I'm going to run at you.
No way. Oh! Jiizuke almost gets the kill on caps, has the flash to get away from Broxah if he goes for the chase. Jiizuke, is this bring Jiizuke back with a vengeance once again? We have not seen much of him this split. Vitality have played much more around their bottom lane, their top lane.
Oh, here we go, here we go.
There it is.
Chomp down. Broxah meets his face into a pillar.
Oh,
we use the fear. There's an engage in the bottom lane. We talked about the kill lane, and there comes the kill. That's one down towards the bottom side. Jactroll goes down.
And there's the 2 versus 2 we were talking about it. FoxDrop, you mentioned the electrocute, the ignite for Hylissang as well. We talked about how squishy Rakan is. Fnatic's bot lane, they find first blood.
That is not really what I was expecting to see so early on into the game, but looking at the way this game will now develop as Bwipo disengages and Hylissang engages, Vitality is very feast or famine determining from their early game.
True.
They don't seem like a team that's very good at playing when they're from behind early on, and we kind of missed how this all started, but it's very simply combo into Jactroll. Is this bully Rakan day by any chance?
I mean, honestly, that's just bad from Jactroll. Like, he should not be in that sort of position. He was only level 2, he gets caught out, and it's pretty obvious that Hylissang is going to go for that knock-up. We did see Bwipo last week have an incredible performance, and this week starting off well for him as well. Already got the first blood, looking to continue his fine form.
Yeah, he's been having a great performance down in the bottom lane, taking over the position of Reckless. Many people question whether it was the right idea, and in this meta, it has worked out perfectly for Fnatic. And to have a bit of fun, this bot lane reminds me of 2 boys that have been bodybuilding for the last couple of years. And then they see this Rakan. He's slim, he's slender. Yeah, he's got a nice six-pack, but can he lift like those boys can? No. He tries to enter their gym, and they just crush him, you know? They bring out the deadlifts, they bring out the squats, and they just smash him.
You didn't know any of those words until like a month ago. Now he's
he might know Jim from Pokemon.
Yeah, it's true. I went in at first, I thought, so where's the leader?
Yeah, where's the leader? Who do I find? That would be cool, though. If you progressed up sort of the gym hierarchy and you got a badge for each gym you'd pass through.
I love that.
That would be really good.
Someone should make that a thing, by the way. We're sitting on gold here. Why are we
sitting on
this?
gold?
Why are we casting? We could be doing this. Jactroll will get a little bit caught out, use the W to get himself away. And this is the thing with Rakan in this lane. As soon as you're 3, you're super safe, right? Because you have your E and your W to get to safety. Jactroll even still has his flash, so not too worried about him now, but he is behind in experience over Hylissang and Bwipo. They've already got that first kill, and if he's not aware of the flash taunt or the taunt coming out from Bwipo, then he can get caught out.
Do you know why he still has flash?
Because he didn't use it.
Because he couldn't. He was CC'd for so long that he got killed before he had an opportunity.
You can flash the headbutt. Just flash the headbutt.
All right, that's fair. He's got to react to that, though. And right now we see Broxah hanging around the bot side of the map. Jiizuke, though, looking in mid with Kikis.
Not going to happen. I'm a bit worried about
this. Just flash the headbutt, guys. Don't know what you're doing. Hylissang will get caught up a little bit. Rooted down as well. Jactroll going in the ignite. That's enough damage to take down the cow. And Attila and Jactroll turn around to 2v3.
How dare you question our Lord and Savior, the Jactroll, the master bait. He knows exactly what's going down there. Doesn't flash out because he's got the eyes on the roast beef, if you will.
Yeah, gonna have himself a little bit of a Sunday dinner.
Yes.
Get the Yorkshire puds
not too
cooking.
Bad. He can also, I mean, Sunday's a few days away, but fry up is definitely on the menu tomorrow.
That's true. Do you have beef in a fry up?
No. but you do have bacon.
Well, you do now.
They're similar animals.
It's true. Cows and pigs, they're so similar. I look at a pig sometimes like, is that a cow? Is that a horse? I don't know. Anyway, Kikis is still counter-jungling up towards the top side. Great start here for Vitality there, about 600 gold ahead at the 7-minute mark. Look at the CS differential between these junglers. Kikis is so far ahead.
And he's still in the enemy jungle, where he lives, apparently. I mean, I did question that Nocturne pick, and I do think that there's still obviously a redemption arc possible for Broxah.
Yeah, oh, for sure.
But, you know, so far it's working really, really well for Kikis. And this is what I was going to say before that engage in the bot lane was I'm worried for Broxah because he just went bot lane to try and get something because he needed that to get back into the game. And right now he's a huge step behind Kikis right now. Level 6 into level 5, a huge CS difference. Having to go for that Hunter's Potion as well, which you don't really want to do playing Nocturne, just because you're so far behind.
Yeah, and we talked a lot about Kikis. He is the newest member on Vitality, brought in to kind of change the dynamic after the struggles that Vitality have had, and he did share some opinions with Broxah in that I was by his side when he was starting his career, and now I get to play versus him in the jungle. Broxah, are you ready for this one, brother?
I love that last line.
I mean, you think about it, back on Fnatic Academy and Fnatic, this is where these two guys were playing together. This is where they started, and then Broxah came in place of Amazing for the starting lineup, and he did bring a big change last year for the Fnatic squad. And Kikis has kind of struggled. The arc of Mysterious Monkeys was not the ideal one for him. He was concerned about whether he would ever really make it back into the LCS. Now that he is back, he went 2-0 with Vitality last week. He started off so far great in this game, and given how close this game is between Vitality and Fnatic, I can only expect more action to come.
Oh, Jactroll went in a little bit too early there, but was going to flash away. Here comes the paranoia from Broxah, looking for who he can engage on. Hylissang's the first of all, but the stopwatch used as well from Jactroll, and Broxah has to flash out of that one. He dived in, he's running for the wins now. Kikis on the chase. Goodbye, my brother. I'm sorry to do it to you, but Broxah will fall. Bwipo joins the fight, gets one, but he's down as well, and Vitality, I've got that ball rolling.
When they started that play, both of the mid laners reset, and I think if you are Fnatic there, you kind of want to keep Caps around because you know that this is going to be a 3v3 that you don't really want to take. You are at a disadvantage there, and if we look at the minimap, Caps is recalling it as this play starts, and there is hesitation coming out of Broxah from the paranoia because he's not really sure if he wants to jump in on anyone. He just gets fully baited here, and Fnatic are running for their hill.
And I think the key thing to remember about this Fnatic bot lane is that they have a lot of burst, but they don't have good sustain damage. So once that initial combo is gone, you can't stay in the fight. You compare that to someone like Attila on the Xayah, he's just going to keep wailing away on you, and the moment that lethal tempo proc is kicking in, and you combine that with the press the attack from Kikis, that is so much damage that comes out so early on into the game that Fnatic, they just overcommitted to an exchange that they could not win. Vitality find themselves 3 kills, and now look, they're at a just under 2,000 gold lead at 10 minutes into the game.
Sitting at 7 and 5 in the tables, they will lap this win up if they can take it. Would match them with Schalke, get them up into a little bit more of a safe zone. You know, we talk about how 8 wins is really where you want to be, at least to qualify for playoffs. Not guaranteed yet, but still a strong position. Jiizuke is chasing in here. Kikis on his way as well. The pillar will knock Caps back. Ooh. Dodges out.
You hate to see it.
You hate to see it.
You hate to see it. That's a bit of a whiff there coming through. Well, a fantastic 100% was a whiff there out of Caps, but a lot of pressure being put on him. This Jiizuke specifically in the 1v1 is putting that pressure on, and that is a core word that I think would highlight what's happening in this entire game. It's pressure. The huge amount of pressure that Kikis is putting onto Broxah, and the same for Jiizuke onto Caps as well.
And what a change this is.
Oh, did you see that?
I did see that. I was watching it.
I think we're getting a fight, boys.
We're going to be able to get the stun off here. The taunt comes out as well. The charm, not quite enough from Jactroll. Distracted Fnatic for the moment, but here's Cabochard. Vitality aren't done with Fnatic yet. Bwipo down, explosive cast, knocks Broxah back. The realm walk with the chase. Vladimir trying to get in with the Predator, but now sOAZ is not in the best of spots at all. And Vitality once again win the fight 2-1.
Cabochard commits to the TP. It looks dangerous at first because there are 4 members of Fnatic, but he says, nope, we can go for this. Jiizuke's here as well. We've only lost a single member, and I feel confident that we can turn this play around. Initially, this is actually pretty risky because it's effectively a 2 versus 4 with a TP flank coming in. That teleport is pretty far away, but because Jactroll and Kikis don't have the proper support from Jiizuke, they can't win this fight. The moment Cabo arrives, it's now 4v4. Hylissang doesn't have any abilities left. You also have the Ryze ulti to close the gap, and Fnatic are forced to immediately disperse. The fact that Fnatic stayed too long in that fight once again is why Vitality were able to turn it around.
What a start to this game from Vitality. They do also get the tower in the bottom lane, a 4,000 gold lead for them. And you have to remember what happened the last time these two teams met. Fnatic absolutely stomped Vitality. That graph on the side, that's 20,000 gold. By the 25-minute mark, they were 20,000 gold ahead. This time, it's Vitality who are winning the early game.
And one of the big reasons for that was because Vitality didn't know how to lose gracefully. Every time Fnatic forced to play, Vitality would turn around and say, okay, we're going to fight you again. We're going to fight you again.
Let's go.
We're going to fight you again. And it just got worse and worse and worse. And now Bwipo, he could be dead again.
Well, Vitality are just going to fight Bwipo again in the bottom lane. The pillar comes out. Bwipo tries to get away, but chomp, 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 eats through to the heart of the Galio.
Fnatic are really struggling in this early game, and the importance of a winning first 20 minutes of Vitality is hugely... I mean, you mentioned they do not know how to lose with grace. It's absolutely that. That's the story for Vitality. Even if they're behind, they'll always look for fights, they'll always look for engages, and it loses them games. But when you're actually ahead, you can look for the fights. You can look for the engages, and it's a lot prettier than when you do it from behind.
But I also think that's one of the big things that Kikis brought to this team, because last week was the first time we saw them come back from a deficit, you know? And that change in playstyle, the attitude approach, means that Kikis is bringing about change in this team, and finding this early lead against Fnatic is exactly what they wanted.
I want to talk a bit about the itemizations coming out of Vitality here as well.
You can do that.
Thank you very much for your permission, fellas. Let's talk firstly from Cabochard here. He's been able to rush the Abyssal Mask, which gives him a more favorable lane matchup, and also means when he TPs into plays, because Fnatic has 4 magic damage dealers and the only physical damage is Nocturne, not really someone that Cabochard is too worried about. These itemizations can be extremely efficient, and like Kikis, for example, is going to be going in for maybe the Spirit Visage too. He's got the Merc Treads coming down as well, and if you get a Banshees onto Jiizuke, anytime you come up team comps like this, you're in heaven, especially if you're a tank. You're in heaven. You itemize really, really just binary, just whack down the MR, and you're sorted. So that will work into Vitality's favor, and when you are ahead in a game as well, it works even more because you just stack that, and it's so hard to get kills if you're Fnatic.
I also actually quite like Gragas into Vladimir, because his W does percentage health damage, and once you get a bit of cooldown reduction, the cooldown on it is actually pretty low, and then you combine that with the damage reduction too, with all the mana resistance stacking, means that the lane matchup isn't actually that bad, and you kind of force the sOAZ to get a very early Void Staff, which kind of sucks for Vladimir, because you want to be stacking as much HP and AP together as possible.
Plus, we saw in that mid-game fight when Cabochard, or the early fight if you will, when Cabochard TP'd in, he's just much more useful at this stage of the game. I mean, Vladimir doesn't really come online till a bit later on, and Cabochard can offer the crowd control, he can offer the bonks onto the head of the high health targets, and the AoE CC and stuff as well. It's just, it really suits what Vitality want to do.
Hylissang was trying to stop Kikis from the charm there. He's going to knock him back. Unbreakable Will has to flash across the wall as well. Rift Herald is going to get a bit of damage down here onto this tower. Not the full charge. Took a little bit of damage just beforehand, but they will still get the tier 2 in the top lane. Third tower of the game for Vitality. Fnatic still yet to put their mark on that turret score. And it's a 6,000 gold lead here for Vitality. Fnatic have struggled in this early game.
So let's also evaluate what's going wrong right now for Fnatic. They don't have pressure around mid. Broxah isn't having the same impact, and their bot lane is struggling, but here comes sOAZ.
Time for the fight, all diving on towards Cabochard, but Broxah has to run away. Bwipo gets knocked in, taunts onto Kikis, but the damage from the Xayah, that's exactly what you want if you're Vitality. You get one when Fnatic started the fight.
That was a beautiful flank from sOAZ, and things looked optimistic for Fnatic, but then everything ends in disaster as Cabochard is able to successfully disengage. The rest of Fnatic can't properly follow up, and they don't have the damage at this point in the game to really win these fights. You know, we talked a little bit about it. Scaling for Azir, scaling for Vladimir. Galio, sure, his damage is decent, but outside of that, you're only looking at the Nocturne, who has only completed his first jungle item.
Yeah, and it's shades back to the Max Lord performance we saw last game when you have this high impact ultimate used to engage, but you can't really do too much with it. We've seen Broxah hesitate with the paranoia, look for targets that he can't really do too much to, and at this stage of the game it's very difficult for Broxah to do what he wants, and we'll see as this fight even starts, he loses his flash, a really good flank and kind of the combo that Fnatic want to pull off, but Broxah jumps in and then can't do anything, and just look at that damage, like it's just, you can't do anything against it, it's strong.
Also note, Hylissang, one of the big frontliners, isn't there. They don't have that extra bit of engage, they don't have that extra tank. Bwipo is still very squishy this early on into the game because he only has a Rod of Ages. And yeah, to kind of go back to what we were talking about before, ooh, wow, we might not have time.
Yeah, the Jactroll's going to get knocked straight back into the tower. Caps goes away as well. Hylissang with the flank here, gets the headbutt pulverized onto Attila, but Attila's just like, okay mate, I'll just take off your health as I push you back, and they'll get a tower in the mid lane as well. Vitality, this is the point where you can just force those fights, because you're so far ahead, it doesn't matter if it's not quite 100% optimal.
But you also, like, your Xayah is at 2 items. You spike really hard on this champion at this point in the game. Rod of Ages already done as well for the Ryze, and that's steadily stacking.
I just realized they have Skinergy.
Oh, they do.
That's why they're winning.
And a World Championship Ryze skin, too.
Oh,
quality stuff. I think this game as well is probably the first game that I've seen so far in this summer split, especially with the on-form Fnatic, where Broxah's actually looked like a big weak link for the team. Broxah's always been mentioned as the kind of rock, the stable for Fnatic, and able to enable what Fnatic want to do. And this game, I think that Broxah has really, really struggled. I mean, look how much pressure Kikis has put on him, how much he's been invading Broxah. And yeah, like I say, the first time that weakness has really been exploited, huge props to Kikis for doing that.
And why do we see that? Well, remember, we talked a lot about winning lane matchups for Vitality. So far, they've had the push non-stop. Aside from the bot lane, arguably, but mid and top, they've always had it. Kikis constantly invading towards the top side. And early game, very early game, he was able to like steal away things like the blue buff. And Broxah just hasn't had opportunities to use his ulti. The only lane he can really play around is bot. And after a couple of failed ganks and some good counter ganks from Kikis, it's actually just been working in Vitality's favor. But also, Caps on this scaling champion. I have full confidence that Caps can play it. But this is not how Fnatic have been winning games this split. They have been very skirmish and fight heavy in the early game. They have been controlling a lot of the early games. And they use their early game leads so fluidly that they look like such a strong team. Now, this comp still has scaling aspects, but this is why they're falling behind right now. Their comp is much more geared towards the late game. It's difficult for them to skirmish with this style of comp when they have been skirmishing a lot with Vitality, and they need to slow the pace of the game down dramatically. But the thing about Vitality is they don't know how to do that. And even when they're losing, they will lose fast. We talked a lot about it, and now that they have this kind of a lead, they have the freedom to force as much as they want, and Fnatic either answer or lose.
So they've got a bunch of options as to where Vitality are going to force here. You can force for towers, you can force for Baron. Those are your two main options. I said a bunch, what I meant was two.
A bunch can be two.
Two options. Yeah, a very small bunch of bananas, just two bananas together.
If you asked someone to buy you a bunch of bananas that came back with two, you'd be disappointed.
I would be, but they were technically correct. It also means I can say I've got a bunch of friends.
I wouldn't go that far.
I'm counting you. Yeah, it's fine. But yeah, they can force for the Baron or they can force around towers. Those two options seem equally viable to me, but I'm sure you guys have a preference.
I prefer the Baron.
Yes.
I prefer Baron because it's more versatile in the way you can actually play around it. You take the Baron, you bait the Baron. I think there's more facets to it, and I think that you can lure the opposing team into a trap around the Baron as well. You can play it and just like put it on your fishing line and just dangle it in front of the enemy team, and I think that works pretty well.
It's a big worm.
Very big one.
I'll also help add to your bunch, make it a 3-parter.
Oh.
The 1-3-1, something you've always got to remember about Ryze. Something that was kind of disgusting last split with the whole stopwatch meta and how he could effectively escape 1v4s because of that interaction. No longer available. Doesn't even have a stopwatch in his inventory right now. But you can see that for a lot of this game, he has just been moving off into a side lane. He does have the teleport. He's sticking towards the top side because they'd much prefer the tank to have the flanking option. But likely he'll either sit in mid or in top lane and just keep that pressure up, allowing Vitality to get this deep vision around Fnatic's top side, where they'll either look for picks, look for collapses, steal away jungle camps, and then eventually use this Baron as a means to force a fight.
So that's what they're going to do.
Yes.
They're not doing it right now.
Well, they are. They're setting a vision. They're setting a vision. The vision, it's a multiple-step process, Medic.
As someone who likes team fights,
vision.
as someone who likes team fights, I don't like the steps. Just give me these fights, and that's what is going to happen as Hylissang jumps in the paranoia, uses well, teleport coming in here, but you can see Broxah just jumps onto the backline and immediately has to back away. There's the kill for Vitality, and we skipped the steps, thank God.
Yeah, that was really uncoordinated from Fnatic. You saw, like, Bwipo's ultimate is still available. Broxah doesn't have it. sOAZ didn't TP in. Fnatic's best hope now is to try and get a Baron steal.
You do have two big team fighters here, though. Caps and sOAZ. The Vladimir, the Azir can do a lot of work, but not when they're dead. Caps somehow still alive. sOAZ on the backline. Caps now falls to Jiizuke, but sOAZ takes down 2. And that's what you need from the veteran for your team. Getting onto that backline, catching out the enemy. Now Bwipo and sOAZ have to run for the hills. Can they escape? Bwipo fighting Cabochard. Kikis and Jiizuke will take down sOAZ, and now Bwipo not in the best of shapes at all. Just as punch is interrupted, and Vitality come out on top.
Props the sOAZ rather, finding a flank onto the carries in the back line, but it was Jiizuke that was the big carry in this fight. Not only finding a kill onto Caps, but help securing those last 2 at the end means that Vitality are now set up to secure this Baron, but Broxah still lives.
No flash. No flash, though. Nocturne can get into the midst of it. Let's look at the levels. Kikis 1 level advantage for him. It's Broxah and Hylissang. Cabochard trying to play bodyguard. He'll do exactly that. He forces Hylissang and Broxah away. And Vitality at 24 minutes get the Baron against Fnatic.
I think the way I would describe everything we just saw in the past 2 minutes was a bit uncoordinated, I would say, from both teams, honestly. This one right here, Hylissang goes in, and Broxah kind of feels like he should follow, but Bwipo pops his W on nothing, as you can see here, and then just decides not to ult. Like, 2 of his teammates members have dedicated to this one, and Bwipo's like, listen lads, I'm not having it. And he decides not to have any of it. And this one as well, it's you'll see Vitality, specifically if you look at the engage from Cabochard, he flash engages the bot side as Fnatic are pushing to the top.
And they are able to get the kill onto Caps, but then there's no peel for the backline. And Bwipo and sOAZ do a good job of shutting that down, but they've now used everything to find those 2 kills, and there are still 3 strong members of Vitality left to help get that kill.
You're in such a good position, though, if you're Vitality now. Baron on most of your team. Attila sitting on almost 3 completed items. You have the Zeeks to buff him up from Jactroll as well. Got a Knight's Vow on Kikis. You're taking down turrets left, right, and center. Pushing in as a 4-man squad. Teleport's going to come in from Bwipo. They might be able to take the tower down in time. Not quite. Bwipo will complete, but there's still a cannon minion there. Sundisk falls in the mid. sOAZ pushes forward, gets rooted up. The tower down to so little HP. Fnatic losing out big here to Vitality. 10,000 gold behind, and Caps, oh, he just about escaped, but not for long enough. Vitality kill the king of Fnatic.
And so much damage, you see that? Cabochard is just huge at this point, but who would have thought 25 minutes into the game, there's a 10,000 gold lead against the best.
Are they really going to try and end
here?
Against the best team in Europe.
They're looking for the flank here with sOAZ has the Hemo Plague, but Vitality can just close this one out. Here's the Paranoia. Hylissang, 3-man knock-up, Heroes entrance, the Wombo combo, finally online, and Fnatic fight back. They're not having it, not today, Vitality. Fnatic stopped them before they could finish out the game, but Jiizuke trying to turn it back around for his team, knocked in by Hylissang. sOAZ in the midst of them all. Jiizuke is down, and And with that, any hope of Vitality winning the fight goes out the window as well. Fnatic hold on to hope in their base.
Vitality get a little too greedy. They see the Nexus in their eyes. They see the opportunity to shut down Fnatic. But unfortunately for them, the engage that changes everything came out from Hylissang. And as you said, Medic, the wombo combo was beautiful as they shut down Vitality.
And this is where it all starts again. Look at the engage here. We have the pillar being used to kind of zone in the beginning and also the Betty flop as well, which means that those tools are not available for this fight. And the wombo combo, you said it before, we'll say it again, just completely obliterates this team fight. And at this point, I'm actually thinking the fact that Fnatic don't have that consistent damage like an AD carry or like the Ryze might actually be their downfall in that fight as the fight was extended. But they wait for their cooldowns to come back up again. They destroy Jiizuke in the fight as well. And then if you want to forge a comeback, that's step one.
Unfortunately, it doesn't slow Vitality down. They still had a couple seconds left on the Baron, and they're looking to keep up with the pressure. Fnatic will need to keep finding these huge, big burst fights. Their consistent DPS will come from Caps, just not yet. You can see that he's only completed the Void Staff along with the Nash's Tooth, yet to complete his third item, and that's some big damage that he's lacking. No death cap available for him while it's right on track for Jiizuke. And if he isn't able to reach those damage points, Fnatic won't have the consistent damage, and they're just going to need these, again, big wombo combos to turn the fights in their favor.
On the plus side, the Baron is not available to be taken. You're starting to lose towers as well. It's like, okay, what does Vitality take here? If you do want to slow the game down, Fnatic are in a good spot to do so because there's limited options for Vitality to actually pressure you right now.
The wave plays okay against these normal minions as well. Caps can pretty quickly clear away. Vitality with a minus Baron power play.
Really?
Lost out on that last fight. What I think it is a lot of gold bounties.
Oh, the shutdown.
That's what I'm thinking about.
Yes.
I'm sure you could press Z on your keyboard in front of you and find out what those bounties really were.
There's a couple actually, yeah. 450, 750, 450, 450.
Yeah, so that's where the gold swing comes from. It's about 2,000 gold just in bounties from those shutdowns.
Yeah, Xayah gave away 750 gold to Vladimir, and if you have a look at his items real quickly, you'll notice that he's got a couple now.
Yeah, just a little bit more than he had before.
So that's one of the big changes that often goes unnoticed, you know, the amount of bonus gold. I killed a Yasuo that was 13 and 0. I got 1,300 gold from him.
You know, I don't believe you.
No, the thing is, Vedius was probably 0-13.
Oh, it's true. I was definitely... But I killed him. That's what matters.
On the fountain as the Nexus went down.
That part I can believe, but a Yasuo deathless, that's too much, mate.
That's true.
Not buying it.
The point is, shutdown gold, you can get a lot the more kills that you stack up. And Attila was sitting at 5-1, but with his loss of life, that means that sOAZ picked up a lot of kills. He's now going to be an even bigger threat in these teamfights to come. And he's already been playing these teamfights pretty nicely. His positioning has been great. We've seen some good flanks from him. And Fnatic are going to rely on him to be a big contributor in the fights to come, as Baron is spawning relatively soon. And you expect that to be the next big point of contention.
Absolutely. And that's, I mean, going against the point I mentioned before, you don't have too much to lose at this point for Fnatic. You can slow the game down. But yeah, when this Baron comes back up, that is where you're really going to have to force something. Do you decide just to let the Baron go, or do you actually try and contest it and risk losing more than just the Baron, potentially the whole game?
I want to just zoom out our topic of discussion a little bit here. Look at the bigger picture.
The observers then zoomed out.
Sorry, observers, I baited you slightly. Fnatic sitting at 9-3. They've just seen Misfits lose to Giants. If they win this game, they catch up with Misfits in that #1 spot, and they can start to take their spot at the top of Europe. But Vitality are really pushing them this game. They're still 8,000 gold ahead, or 9,000 gold ahead. And if Vitality win, then they're very much in the race for third, fourth, maybe even second spot.
Because when you think about the whole league right now, the kind of race for playoffs is the middle of the pack teams have to beat the teams around them. You kind of assume you're going to lose to the top 3 if you have them. So beating the teams around you is what matters the most. If you then get surprise upset victories against the top teams, the fight happens.
Hylissang already very low in the midst of this all. He's just going to get caught out by Vitality. Hylissang has not had the best of games here, and Vitality now in a 4v5 can look for the win. The Baron still alive for them.
So this feels like an Ole situation to me, where the team is communicating to
saying
engage,
go in,
and then there's no follow-up because they realize that the situation isn't
we'll
good.
blame it on Hylissang.
No Bwipo ultimate used, sOAZ TP was late, Baron now being started for Vitality. Let's see with 4 members if Fnatic can still pull off a fight when they have all their ultimates available.
sOAZ looking for the flank, has the flash, but the charm comes in straight away. Here is entrance stopped by the pillar, and Bwipo cannot save his comrade in arms. Superb stuff from Vitality to catch out sOAZ.
That's another member down. It's now a 5v3 for Vitality, and if anything's going to stop it, Broxah has to make the hero play.
They need vision in the pit. They don't have any. They've got the soldiers in there. Bwipo forced away Hylissang. Broxah. It's a flash smite, that's all you've got, my man. Hylissang in with the righteous score, he gets onto Cabochard, Broxah flashes in, Broxah gets the kill, but the Baron still goes to Vitality, and now they just sweep away from Fnatic.
And look at the minion wave in the bot side. The pings are coming down, the TP's coming down. This could be the end of the game.
Look at the face of Jiizuke. This is the man that we wanted to see for the entirety of this split. With those death timers and a Ryze ult bringing the minion wave, Vitality will find themselves another upset win today, and Fnatic will be shut down.
Great stuff there from Vitality. sOAZ trying to do what he can, but you can't do much against 3 members of Team Vitality. Another notch on the board for Vitality. They take down Fnatic.
Is this the Kikis effect? Ever since he's come in, man, they've looked really, really good. And much like the last game, when I said Giants just looked like a really good team versus Misfits, Vitality, they just looked absolutely solid.
Look at the faces of joy on this Vitality squad. You know, you talked about it, this Kikis effect, FoxDrop. These guys are just playing so much calmer, so much more meticulously. It just feels like a different squad compared to what we saw in the last few weeks when they were struggling. This guy counter jungles a lot, he plays more for himself, and with a 3-1-13 scoreline, he had a huge impact in this big win for Vitality.
Incredible stuff all round from Vitality. If you're Fnatic, you're looking back at that game and saying, well, where did it all go wrong? Felt like from the early game, they were just miscoordinated. Their dive wasn't working. Their whole strategy just didn't seem to align.
I mean, let's think about where Fnatic has found so much success over the last few weeks. Hylissang on roaming supports. Broxah successfully playing around Caps, making Caps your primary carry while Bwipo holds his own in the bot lane. This is completely away. This moves completely away from that style of play, much more towards the scaling avenue, spending your early jungle attention more towards the bot side of the map, and Fnatic were just not able to execute upon it as cleanly as they have in the past.
And huge credit in the draft for Vitality to leave the Nocturne open and pick the Trundle into it. Quite obviously with the game plan where you can just invade him and you can beat him. And I thought maybe that would be a bit of a scary one, but nope, absolutely. Oh, look at that, and that's sweet.
That is very sweet. Let's have another look at the final fight. This is brought to you by Acer Predator, as we see Caps hugging a future Fnatic fan or a current Fnatic fan.
So we'll have a look at this final fight. You can see that only 4 members of Fnatic are alive. Multiple members of Fnatic dive in. Cabochard ends up going down. Kikis still alive. Yep. With the Q smite combo, he cleanly takes that one down. Broxah doesn't really have an opportunity to steal it away, and even if he did, all of Fnatic were going to die anyway.
Exactly, and I remember when we watched this live, I thought, oh, Broxah got it, because he got a kill at the same time as the Baron died, but no, it wasn't enough, and that man on your screen right there, he was really, really good in this game, and I mean, he contained Broxah, and I guess we can really see what Broxah means to Fnatic when that happens.
It's just incredible stuff from Vitality. That gold graph looks a lot like the Fnatic gold graph the last time these two teams met. Very much a different story here today with Vitality taking the win.
But also, Jiizuke unlocked.
Oh yeah!
One of the big criticisms all split was he doesn't have champions that can really suit him. He's not been able to find these playmakers. He's not individually outperforming. He was getting solo killed by people like Senkux and Niski right at the start of the split. But now the Ryze is back. Azir v Ryze matchup, this was his forte. Zoe as well. If these are the kind of champions he's allowed to get his hands on, we're likely going to see the return of the Italian stallion.
Oh, baby!
There it
is.
No, not nay. Yay.
Ah.
Yay.
Well done, Vedius.
Sometimes I feel like I should be standing here, so that when you guys have your moment, I can just...
No, it's because when we look to hug each other, we get to hug you as well.
Thank you, fellas.
So we've got Attila, Jactroll, and Kikis looking to become your player of the game. So use your vote. Head on over to Outlaw Esports on Twitter, and
You got to go to Twitter. You got to vote.
You got to go.
Press the button.
Got to move to Twitter.
Yeah.
On your browser, usually on a phone or on a laptop as well, you have to have those pieces of equipment. It's not a physical location.
No.
Unless there are birds outside your window, because then it is Twitter.
But also vote. It's important. A lot of good options for you. It was a great game from Vitality. Phenomenal game. Thank you, gents, for the cast.
Thank you very much. We're going to hug again before
Nope,
I do the...
we're not.
I really want to hug again.
Nope.
Okay, in a
can
few
hug
minutes...
off cam.
Pardon?
We'll hug off cam, that's
Okay,
fine.
cool. In a few minutes, Kikis is joining Shocks and Friends in the EU LCS post-game lobby. But before that, I'm going to hug them both. and we'll see what Jiizuke and Attila have to say.
Thank you, Medic, and thank you too for joining me today. Now, taking down Fnatic, finally. So how did you make that happen? Because it looks like a messy game from them. Jiizuke.
We won really hard early game, and mid was kinda even. And yeah, like jungle, Kikis was 2 levels ahead, and I think because of that, we just won the game.
Yeah.
He pretty much just invaded, and the top and bot were winning really hard.
But it looked like at some point you were going to lose it, like being in the base, getting resetted fully. So how did you take it back in the end, in the last team fight?
They had no chance when Yamato Cannon drafted the draft that we had. Like, I think he pretty much set up us to actually just win in a really comfortable way. We actually managed to get a really big early lead, and after that, yeah, they solid good. They are a good team, but like if we actually played properly and don't lose more nashers like we usually do, like we actually finish games.
Yeah, it worked really well for you guys now. Nowadays we hear that Fnatic may be the best team in Europe right now. Do you agree, Jiizuke?
I think they're for sure top 2, top 3. They're a really good team, yeah.
Yeah, and now that you played them, what do you think about them, Attila?
They're still good. Just people, I don't know why they put us really low. Like last split, they did the same. We came up on top. Like this split, we started slower, but at the end of the day, like we're still here and we're actually gonna fight the top teams.
You are, and it's been your second with Kikis right now, so it's been going really well for you. How do you explain this going to be being really well with Kikis instead of Gilios?
He won a 50-50. God bless him.
How do you think he's different playing with him instead of Gilios? Because you're the mid laner, so you get more attention from your jungler.
I think they have a different playstyle. I think Vedius is more a ganking jungler, while Kikis wants to really get ahead by counter jungling, I'd say. Like, at least the last 3 games, he was in enemy jungle all the time, and he got really ahead, like 1 level, 2 levels. And Vedius instead wants to do the level 2, level 3 gank, like early pressure. It's 2 types of style, but every team has that, really.
It doesn't work so well usually when you swap a player in the middle of the split, although for you it's been going really well. So how is it going with Kikis in the gaming house? How do you explain he's been doing so well with you recently?
I mean, it's going really well. Like the only thing I complain about is too much Polish on the house. Like he and Jactroll are speaking Polish all the time, and I get really jealous.
They're on a spray, really. They're on a spray.
I cannot speak Portuguese with anyone else, but he really adapted well to the team. He's really friendly, and he has this hungry to win again. So.
Yeah. Really glad to hear that. Now more on you, Jiizuke. It's been a while since we talked, and the last time you were not really happy with your performances, so how are you feeling now?
I wasn't happy only of my first 2 weeks performances, but after that I think I got confidence back, and I was either solo killing or roaming a lot in the game, so I was happy about myself. And right now as well, like this game, for example, if Broxah didn't came in caps help, I would have a solo kill or a 20 CS lead, but close.
Well, hold on to this confidence for the rest of the split. Thank you guys for joining me today, and we're going to send it over to Shocks for ULCS post-game lobby.